David Pastrnak missing the first few days of camp with tendinitis isn't a reason to panic, but it does raise questions about how much the Bruins rely on him, and it opens the door for other players to seize an opportunity. And with Don Sweeney deciding against bringing in any PTOs, this training camp is going to be all about internal competition.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Thursday, September 18th. Happy first official day of training camp. And thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, your first listen every day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And on today's show, we're going to discuss some big takeaways from yesterday's media availability with Bruins general manager Don Sweeney and new head coach Marco Sturm, including Pasternak's tendinitis, why the Bruins skipped on PTOs, how Marco Sturm's approaching training camp, as well as some big picture camp stakes. Elias Lindholm, Nikita Zadorov, Jeremy Swayman, and also Victor Arvidsson as the Bruin of the day. Now, before we get into all that, again, thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Again, my name is Ian McLaren. I'm a longtime hockey writer, host of this daily Boston Bruins podcast, bringing you analysis, news, and insight you won't get anywhere else. Please follow along on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Follow Locked NHL Bruins on Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, X, TikTok. Follow me, my hockey thoughts and dad jokes at Ian C. McLaren. All right, the biggest headline from Don Sweeney on Wednesday was about David Pastrnak. He said Pastrnak won't skate for the first couple days of camp because of some tendinitis from his off-season training. The Bruins are calling it load management. He will be in full practice early next week. He's already skating on his own, but they're holding him out of full practices for the first couple of days of camp. Now, this is precautionary, not really something to panic about. It's a chance for Marco Sturm and the staff to give other guys some top line and power play looks while the superstar rests. Now, tendinitis is a bit more serious than the pre-tendinitis that my kids try to feign every day. But it's not super serious. It's treatable with the typical Rice method. If you're not familiar with the Rice method, you go with rest, ice it, compression, elevation, and of course, some mild pain relief as well, over-the-counter pain relievers. Tendinitis can go away with treatment and rest, though the time it takes to recover varies depending on the severity of the injury. It can take several weeks to a few months for chronic cases. Now, what even is tendinitis? It's inflammation of the cords that attach your muscle to your bone, called tendons. It can get irritating, and the pain is typically worse with movement. We don't know exactly where he's feeling it, but it's typically in your shoulder, elbow, wrist, hip, knee, ankle. So hopefully with a few days of rest, David Pastrnak will be able to hit the ground running early next week. I wouldn't expect him to play in Monday's Sunday's preseason game. Wasn't likely anyways. Usually the star players are reserved for like the last few preseason games as the team gets ramped up. So it's precautionary, no reason to panic. and something that should be easily treatable, and he hopefully will not be dealing with this for weeks on end as we get into the regular season. On the flip side, with Pastrnak out, Don Sweeney expanded on not inviting any professional tryout players to camp this year. It's something that he has done quite regularly. In fact, I think it's only the second or third time that there have been no PTO candidates at training camp. Last year it was Tyler Johnson. Before that, we had Danton Heinen, among others. No PTOs this year, basically because all of the tryout candidates are under contract already, right? They're focusing on internal competition. They have guys that they have signed to contracts already, including Sean Corrali, Michael Essimont, Matej Blümel, Alex Steves. Plus, they have guys who were already in the system competing for spots, like a Fraser Minten, like a Fabian Lysell, like a Matt Poitras, among others, like Georgi Merkulov, John Farinacci. So the focus is on that internal competition. They didn't want to bring anyone in from outside, although he did say that they are keeping an eye on certain other free agents. Everydayers will know that I was big on potentially looking at Robbie Fabry as a PTO candidate, a guy who has high-end skill, although has been really beat up in terms of injuries over the last few seasons. Looks as though the Pittsburgh Penguins extended a PTO to him. Kyle Dubas saying this morning that Rutger McGroarty and Noel Acciari both starting injured, so a good chance for Fabry to make an impression there. Sweeney exactly said, we decided we are not going to bring anybody at this time. We're going to stay committed to our players. Meaning, yeah, that internal competition. The tryouts are already like, it's not a tryout in terms of can you earn an NHL contract? Basically, what it is right now is internal competition to see who is going to stick with the Boston Bruins roster, who's going to be placed on waivers, sent to Providence, or if you're waiver exempt, who's going to be assigned to the minors to begin the season. That's the internal competition, and that's kind of the tryout. If you want to be a member of the Boston Bruins, then you have to work hard, prove you belong, and basically take another guy's job. Sweeney said that as well. Like, if you want to make this team, you're effectively taking another guy's job. So, yeah, while they're all preparing to start off better than they did last season and have a better season as a team, these guys are coming in kind of, yeah, you got to be kind of not selfish, but make your mark so that you can prove that you belong on this team. Don Sweeney also had jokes on Wednesday, said, I thanked Jeremy for his attendance. Everybody accounted for, and being present is a big part. Jeremy Swayman showing up from day one after the prolonged contract stalemate last season that kept him out of training camp until the very end. Sets a good tone. A lot of people thought, oh, Sweeney's being sarcastic. Like, is this supposed to be funny? Is he ragging on Jeremy Swayman? The reality is it was just a joke, and they need Jeremy Swayman to be there on day one, putting in the work to get back to being an elite goaltender at the NHL level. So it's a big thing for him to be there. Pasta, look, he's going to be fine with some rest, some ice, some Tylenol. The no PTO decision clears the runway for younger players. Swayman's presence is part of a reset in accountability. Coming up, we're going to touch on Marco Sturm heading into his first camp as head coach. Steve Spott taking over the power play. That was flat out broken last year. We'll touch on this and more here as the podcast continues. We've got another week of NFL action coming up, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. People love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays, as well as Thursdays and Mondays. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, thank you so much again for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. Every dayers know you can find your fresh episodes in your podcast app and on YouTube, so please do subscribe if you have not already. Make sure you are subscribed because I'll be back tomorrow with day one line combos, power play looks, who's popping in practice, as well as previewing the first preseason game, which is taking place this weekend. Now, let's talk coaching. Don Sweeney talked about the power play yesterday and how abysmal it was last season. He said they were on the same page. Entries had a real struggle. Steve Spott taking command will be an important part of Boston's turnaround. The Bruins finished 29th on the power play last year. 4 of the 5 core guys were back with Elias Lindholm joining in, and still they couldn't get set up. Charlie McAvoy, David Pastrnak, Brad Marchand to begin the season. All these guys just could not find their rhythm early on, and then, of course, you saw those units depleted by injury and via trade. So in comes Steve Spott, a former assistant coach with the Dallas Stars, who ran a very nice power play over there. Yes, he had the horses to do so with your Jason Robertsons, Rupe Hintz, Matt Duchene, Tyler Seguin, Miro Heiskanen, Thomas Harley, Mikko Rantanen joining the fray. The Bruins don't quite have that level of talent, but Steve Spott can improve and should improve this unit. We can expect clearly defined roles. Pasta on the flank, Lindholm as the bumper, maybe Arvidsson net front on PP2 or spotting Morgan Geekie on PP1. The first reps are going to be happening without Pasta, meaning Casey Middlestat and others could get longer looks on the power play unit, but expect improvement there via Steve Spott. When it comes to defensive identity, Marco Sturm said nothing is going to change that. That's been a hallmark of Boston Bruins hockey since he was a player here. He does want to tweak a few things, though, to get more offense, and he's emphasizing patience. He said he's not like a huge big picture guy. He's taking it one step at a time, starting with a foundation that they need to stick with in order to find success. He's not ripping up Bruins hockey. He's not starting from scratch here. He's not reinventing the wheel. The defensive structure will remain imperative, but he wants to layer in more offensive support. And importantly, he stressed communication. Everybody needs to be on the same page. Everybody needs to know their role and to answer the call when it comes. One of the big questions heading into training camp is the second line center role. And Marco Sturm said he loves Pavel Zacha at center, but he might have to play wing. He really needs to see it in order to make some decisions. Casey Middlestat penciled in as the second line center with Victor Arvidsson on the right wing, Zacha on the left. We might see Zacha moving around in preseason. Maybe he bumps down to third line center so they can find some more stability and spread things out that way. Maybe he'll start on the wing. Maybe he'll start second line center with Mittelstadt on the wing. He stressed not to overreact too early to line deployment and depth charts because, look, he's coming in as a brand new head coach. So he's, got his ideas of how a training camp should go. He's also coming in with fresh eyes, right? We have all this knowledge about our team this is how we think it should go based on what we saw last year and in the years prior. But Sturm's coming in with fresh eyes. Maybe he sees something different than what we would expect. And so even in the early stages of training camp, whatever the lines are looking like, it's important not to overreact or read too much into it because he's kind of getting a feel for it in the same way that we all are coming into a new season. The tone, though, is Sturm is hearing the players want to play and they're pissed off about last year. And this was a question that was asked of him in terms of if he's going to hit the ground running with some regulars in the preseason or if he's going to experiment with some younger guys to see how they can pop. Everybody wants to play. Everybody's eager to get back out there and erase the sting of last season. We might sit back here and think, hey, it might be good for the Bruins to have a down year again because the 2026 NHL entry draft is very deep and strong, but that's not the mentality in the coaching staff and from the players. They want to get out there. They're pissed off about last year. It did not resemble anything we've seen over the last couple of decades in terms of what Boston Bruins hockey should be. They haven't bottomed out in quite a long time. Even when they missed the playoffs, 2015, 2016, it was like by a point or two. Veterans are eager, and that means we might see more regulars in early preseason games than usual. Sturm wants live reps to install Spott's power play system, tweak offensive habits. The Bruins' defensive DNA remains intact, and this could be a team that is forced to win a lot of 2-1, 3-2 games. But with Spott resetting the power play and Sturm using camp to test line fits and try to push this team more offensively, that can only be replicated to a certain degree in practice. We're going to have to see that in exhibition games, and I believe there's only 6 on the schedule. So there might be some early decisions made in terms of, all right, thanks for showing up. You're not part of the plan for this year. Here's the guys that we want to deploy right away in order to hit the ground running in game 1 of the regular season. You don't want a situation where the game 1 lineup has never been in place before. You want that at least in the last couple games of the exhibition season, if not sooner. So I'm pretty excited to see what Sturm does here today as the Bruins begin their on-ice training. Excited to see what the lines look like. Again, not set in stone. Take them with a bit of a grain of salt. But with Pastrnak out, it gives guys an opportunity to slot in kind of above where they might be projected and take advantage of that. Like a Fabian Lysell or a Fraser Minten or a Matej Blümel can really skate in a spot reserved for David Pastrnak and prove they can hang with the Bruins core players. And that could go a long way to determining whether or not they're a fit for the opening night lineup. All right, coming up, we're going to talk about Lindholm and Zadorov's bounce back expectations, goalie workload plans, and name our Bruin of the day. It's all coming up here as the podcast continues. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. And that's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. It's built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. They do the heavy lifting. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without even touching a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. A few more key takeaways to discuss from yesterday's pre-training camp media availability with Don Sweeney and Marco Sturm. He was asked, Sweeney was, about bounce backs from Elias Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov. And Sweeney said, quote, "We expect growth in both players and to contribute in a more positive manner." Lindholm has openly said he wanted to flush last year. He did begin with some back issues, and it took him a while to get into the swing of things. But his chemistry with Pasta and Geeky near the end of the season, plus his performance at the World Championships, give hope. And he's going to be looking also to be named to the Swedish Olympic team. So, he's going to want to get off to a good start as well. Sweeney said Zadorov did have a solid statistical season, but took too many penalties and needs discipline to match his physical presence. I'm expecting a lot more from both of these guys. I've said many times that when you're coming into a new team, a new system, a new city even, not to mention a coaching change and roster turnover, there's going to be some growing pains, but they're going to feel a lot more comfortable. They're now core members of this team, guys who have longer term contracts. You have your inner core of Jeremy Swayman, Charlie McAvoy, David Pastrnak, Hampus Lindholm, but these two are right there in terms of core guys. And I even went so far as to suggest the other day that Zadorov could even be named captain. So I expect a better season from both of those guys, and that should help improve the overall performance of the team. In terms of the goalie workload, they're going to look at volume. Don Sweeney said there was a question about Joonas Korpisalo kind of not being content with his starts last season with Jeremy Swayman struggling. Sweeney was vocal or made a point to name check DiPietro. The backup battle is real here. Korpisalo will get his shot, but DiPietro could really force the issue and make Sweeney have to choose whether or not to put Korpisalo on waivers, bury him in the AHL for the time being. They opened with a back-to-back, so that's a decision they're going to have to make pretty quickly here. Who's going to get that second start with Jeremy Swayman, obviously starting the season opener. There was a remark that there's always one surprise in training camp, whether that will be Matej Blümel, Alex Steves, Fabian Lysell, who knows? But keep an eye on those guys, even perhaps a D prospect like Victor Soderstrom. Maybe he comes in as an 11th overall pick from a few years ago and fights for a third pairing spot on the right side, which is, fairly thin. Finally, Zdeno Chara was brought up. He's going into the Hall of Fame here in a couple months, and he will be coming back to Boston soon. He's had this crazy summer of marathons, triathlons, climbing mountains, swimming to the bottom of the ocean, all this kind of stuff. Sweeney said once he gets back in town, they're going to be announcing a role in the near future with a defined position with the team, pretty much all mapped out already. He did mention Marco Sturm being a factor in that, so perhaps it's more on the coaching player side of things and with management, but expect an official announcement regarding Chara in the near future. All right, today's Bruin of the day, I'm going with Victor Arvidsson, and both Sweeney and Sturm singled him out. Sturm actually said he was very happy that Sweeney added Victor Arvidsson as well as Tanner Jeannot, guys that who he's familiar with from his Los Angeles Kings days. Both Arvidsson and Jeannot know each other as well from the Nashville Predators. When Sweeney was asked what he's looking for from Arvidsson, the list was not small. Goal scoring, interior play, competitiveness on the puck, shot volume, commitment to get to the blue paint. He's playing in a top 6 role to start out. So if there's any question about Arvidsson being your second line right winger, that's out the window. And with Pasta on the shelf to begin camp, you can expect Arvidsson perhaps to get some looks on the top line, unless they want to experiment with the younger guy up there as well. Sturm said RV is a competitor. He will fit well. He's not super vocal, but you will see it in practice and in games. Victor Arvidsson is exactly what Steve Spott's power play and Sturm's offense need. Relentless shot volume, net front presence, and a high motor. And with Pasta out early, Arvidsson will get a prime opportunity to set the tone and show his value to the team. Or, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. He is only under contract for this season, so he could very much be a trade candidate when it comes to the trade deadline, the Bruins getting some assets. But for the time being, he is a full member of the Boston Bruins, and they are counting on him to provide some offense. Last season with the Oilers, he had 15 goals in 67 games on 158 shots, which was a 9.5 shooting percentage, 2.4 goal or shots per game. His shot volume was down, his shooting percentage was down, and his ice time was down as well. He only had about 15 minutes of ice time with the Oilers. Back in 2022-23, his last relatively healthy season, he had 26 goals, 33 assists, for 59 points in 77 games with the Los Angeles Kings. That was a 63-point pace, 228 shots, 11.4 shooting percentage, 3 shots per game in about 17 minutes of ice time. So if he can get a couple more minutes per game and another half shot per game with his career shooting percentage around 11, he should very much get at least to the 20 goal mark for the Bruins this season. And that would be a huge bonus, huge upgrade. This is a guy who has averaged, despite injuries, 51 points per 82 games over the last 3 seasons, 52 points for his career, a 0.63 point per game average, and he's succeeded on the power play. He can even chip in on the penalty kill. This is a guy who will be pretty important to this team in terms of turning things around. He's 32. He does have some miles on him, some injury concerns to be sure, but hopefully he's fully healthy and comes into training camp really able to set the tone as a guy who, look, with the Oilers last season, prime opportunity to win a Stanley Cup, was not able to contribute as much as he and the Oilers hoped. And he's getting a fresh start here with the Bruins and with prime opportunity here, especially with Pasta out. Quick recap here. Pastrnak's tendinitis, minor, load management. Hopefully he's full participant come Monday. No PTOs means there's a real internal competition. Spott's in charge of fixing the power play. Lindholm, Zadorov, the goalies, all looking for positive bounce backs. Victor Arvidsson is the tone setter and today's Bruin of the day. Tomorrow, I'll be back with day one line looks, maybe some early power play units, first impressions from practice, all the latest on the Boston Bruins. Follow along on X, Instagram, Threads at Locked NHL Bruins, and me at Ian C. McLaren. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, wherever you get podcasts. Check out the Locked On NHL podcast next as your second listen. League-wide stories from our local experts. Thank you for making Locked On Bruins your first listen. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please do take care of yourselves, friends. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you again here on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.